Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, Scotland and Northern Ireland voted to remain in last month's referendum. Today, politicians from both nations warned of the strains that Brexit could place on the United Kingdom. On her first visit to Belfast as Prime Minister, Theresa May insisted last month's vote would not mean a return to the borders of the past between Northern Ireland and the Republic. While in Edinburgh, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said her response was to keep the option of independence firmly open. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, reports.
The Northern Ireland border, long the location for customs posts, later for highly militarised security checkpoints. Could one or both be coming back? Theresa May made her first visit to Northern Ireland as Prime Minister, trying to reassure the province that Britain leaving the EU didn't mean border checks returning.
Nobody wants to return to the borders of the past. What we do want to do is to find a way through this that is going to work.
Only 1 month ago, Mrs May was saying the opposite.
You couldn't have an open border between a country with free movement and a country outside the EU.
Back in June, Theresa May was campaigning for Britain to stay in the EU. Now she's trying to make Brexit work. Officials say they hope to avoid passport checks by having strong employment checks. Avoiding customs posts could be much more difficult.
Our assessment is that there is absolutely no good news whatsoever about Brexit. There are no good opportunities flowing from Brexit. We are totally opposed to any border of any description whatsoever, whether it be for trade or the free movement of people.
I don't see how you can do without customs controls because Britain will be outside the customs union, and that of course has political consequences. It'll very much inflame tensions among Republicans, and some of my friends in Dublin fear that it could lead to a resumption of terrorism because customs controls on the border will be a red rag to the bull of remnant Republican terrorism.
Theresa May's very first trip from London as Prime Minister was to Edinburgh to emphasise her commitment to the UK. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon today said her government would continue to explore ways of keeping Scotland in the EU, even as the rest of the UK leaves. And she sounded like she was warning her supporters this might not work.
And let me say it very, very bluntly. I don't underestimate the challenge of finding such a solution. Even if we can agree a position at UK level, we would face the task of persuading the EU to agree it. So the barriers are substantial.
I cannot see how it works legally or politically. You get a lot of clever legal academics who say it might work with one scheme or another, but I don't think the political and legal reality allows for that. It's perfectly legitimate for Mrs Sturgeon and her government to explore such options, but I think they know that they're not going to lead anywhere.
From the border in Northern Ireland to the whole status of Scotland, we're still in the foothills of finding answers to the giant questions thrown up by Brexit.
I'm Gary Gibbon is live in Westminster. Now, Gary, leaders of Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, all extremely concerned about Brexit and telling the Prime Minister that, but pressure from a completely different direction from within her own party. What's going on?
Yes, do you remember David Cameron saying that the referendum would buy the Tories peace? It doesn't seem to be doing anything of the sort. There are Tories already on the Leave side who are saying that they're going to be watching Theresa May hawkishly, holding her feet to the fire, trying to make sure that she does not compromise in any way on some of the areas that they think mustn't be compromised on. And top of the list is freedom of movement. And they sniff that Theresa May and others around her are interested in this. They talk about trying to take over committees in the House of Commons and make sure that they can keep an eye on the situation. They talk about giving succour to people like David Davis and Liam Fox in the government. So it is important to remember that it is not only Labour that is divided at this time, and the referendum really hasn't done the trick for the Tories, and the majority remains very small.
Well, talking of Labour, a Labour MP has tonight unresigned from the shadow cabinet. Please explain.
Yeah, it's the front bench, actually. She didn't quite make it to the shadow cabinet, but at this rate, you never know in the Labour Party. Sarah Champion, MP for Rotherham, was part of the exodus of people who left the front bench in the hope that that would destabilise Jeremy Corbyn and topple him. It didn't do the trick, and she sort of crawled back and begged forgiveness and begged for her job back, and she's got it back, and people around Jeremy Corbyn say she may not be the last of people, because an awful lot of Labour MPs, they think, will be worried about boundary reviews, pressure from their constituencies, and the sense that Jeremy Corbyn, on current trends, might well win this.
Gary Gibbon at Westminster.
I've been getting